We showed that it was not, as some of the French colleagues had said, it is not ship sheds. Anyway, I will use this chance to show, and we can publish it. So one of the little bits of unpublished work of Honor Frost can be published with this. What had happened this afternoon, and it completely dérangé my presentation. It's in a different format. So after that, my PowerPoint went, well, this afternoon. But this is Honor. It's because Honor could be, sometimes had enough of academic presentations, and she also had a nice naughty streak, which we should all have.
Yeah, I don't have one of those myself.
Okay.
Eleanor, a personal, professional, or most characteristic memory?
Well, I knew Honor Frost since I was a student at the University of Bristol, and I first met in the summer 1996, and I had the privilege to dive with her. And one memory which is inscribed in my mind is when we dive off the island of Ustica, the northern coast of Sicily. And it was 1996 when she was awarded of the Tridente d'Oro, the Golden Trident, given by the Accademia di Scienze Subacquee di Ustica. And we dive, and we, with the help of other people, of course, established what was the first underwater archaeological itinerary in the Mediterranean. It was a Punta Gavazzi itinerary. So she was, since then, she remained a firm mentor, a reference point for me, both professionally and socially. And so I will never forget her being very welcoming, very motivating, very encouraging, even in Sicily, where, life is not so easy. I mean, it seems that the time is like it was, even now, is like it was during Honor Frost days. So she teaches me about hard work, about self-respect, about persistence, and we laughed together. And humor, I will never forget her sense of humor, her sarcasm, her friendly sarcasm after having passed the test, as Peter Warrich told me yesterday. Because, to be friend of honor, it's a great pleasure, but it's not was easy for everybody. So I will never forget all of her help, have been welcoming, encouraging in my research. That's.
Thank you, Eleanor. Bob?
Same question. So yes, I met Honor in the late 90s, and we worked together on various sites in Lebanon, but I recall I have many, many memories with her. Some of it is personal, some of it is professional, for sure. But I remember, and I keep remember something with a little regret, and I'll explain why. It was at the end of the day of a long diving day in Tyre South, working with the group of Jean-Yves Empereur in 2002, I think. After a long day, we stayed at the house, the big white house in the Christian quartier of Tyre. So I was sitting on the balcony, tuning my guitar. Honor Frost came out to ask me just to chill out, and she tolerated me tuning the guitar. And then after playing a couple of tunes, Honor asked me, would you be an angel and fetch me my bottle of scotch? And I said, of course, Honor. So I went inside, I get her bottle of scotch, and she started singing. She sang for me a song. What I regret is I did not write all the words. She said, I learned this song when I was a girl, and it was, all I remember from the song, it was about William Wallace. If somebody who can tell me anything, I'll be grateful. She sang a song, it was nice. I tried to put tune into it, but I did not remember anything. So this is her honor after a diving day, chilling out. She's very happy. I'm sure most of you who know her, after diving, she's very happy and she needs her scotch. 1. 2, honor angry at me in Byblos because I said to her, Honor, I don't think you should be diving today. And I think she was really, I saw the bad side of Honor because she did not tolerate me telling her this. And she made sure that she is the director, said, I did not question this, but I love you. And I'm worried. It's like, you weren't even born when I was underwater. The reason why I said no, I was with Jacques Collina-Girard, Michel Helou, and myself, Honor Frost, offshore 2 kilometers. The waves were so high, and Honor insisted she wants to come down with us. And when I refused, she gave me some, anger treatment. And I agreed, but I told Michel and Jacques, please keep an eye on me. I'm stuck on Honor. If I need your assistance, please don't leave me alone. I don't want any accident. So the plan was to jump into the water with the BCD deflated totally because we cannot miss the point. So the skipper is giving us the signal to go, and we jump right away into the sea, into the water, and go down right away. So, of course, with Honor, she did not like the plan. She wants to take her time. So I told Michel to wait for us. As soon as we started ascending, at about 9 meters, Michel and Jacques Collina-Girard disappeared in the deep. Honor Frost asked me to go up, and she gave me the sign with her big blue eyes, I can't breathe. So I did not take the chance. I gave her my alternative air source, purged, she's breathing, okay, but we went up. So this shows, for those of you who don't know Honor Frost, how adamant she is if she wants to do something. But then guess what? On the boat, when we went up, she said, I'm sorry. She admits. So that was my contribution.
Oh, thank you, Bob. Does anybody else wish to offer a memory? Just one, though, not 2. We have John Curtis.
Thank you. I think I'm the only person here, that was on the Marsala excavation, and I was for 6 weeks in 1972 and 2 weeks in 1973. But just to add a few glosses to what has been said, there's no doubt that the help and the contribution of Dr. Alagna and his family was absolutely enormous. And I think, actually, if it hadn't been for the help of Dr. Alagna, it would have been very difficult indeed for Honor to have done the excavation at all. So if Dr. Alagna is still watching via live streaming, he deserves the gratitude of everybody. And it is certainly true that in 1972 and 3, we were living in a villa which had been provided by Dr. Alagna. It was a sort of a family villa. And I remember it very well because in many of the rooms were old family portraits of long-dead Alagna family members. They were all very distinctive, these type of Sicilian portraits that I think were painted just after the person had passed away. So all had a sort of slightly peculiar tilt to the head. It was quite spooky, actually, working amongst them, but it could be said we were very closely working within the Alagna family. The other point I'd like to make is there was another person who was very, very helpful, who had not been mentioned at all, and he was a very frequent visitor to the excavation, and his name was Manfred Pedicini, and he was a member of the Whittaker-Ingham family, and I think he was the main contact at that time with the Whittaker-Ingham family. I don't think there was anybody else then living on Mocha. He used to come very often bringing supplies and taking Honor for dinner and that sort of thing, and he was very helpful indeed. So whoever's writing this biography, writing Honor, ought to follow that one up. Thank you.
Thank you. Shelley?
So in the early 1980s, when I was Inspector of Underwater Antiquities, invited Honor to come to Israel to visit us there. And, you know, at the time it was like one of the gods of nautical archaeology coming to visit us. We went to dive at Tentura, which has a lot of shipwrecks, enormous number of anchors. And I gave her a Fenzi, what was in those days a buoyancy compensator, and she looked at me with disgust and said, "I'm not wearing that. This is something like Bob's story." I said, "Well, I'm sorry, the Israeli law requires you to wear a Fenzi, it requires you to wear a buoyancy compensator." And we almost got into a fist fight. In the end, she did wear it, and I actually gave you a photograph of her wearing it. I think that's the only photograph you'll ever see with her wearing a buoyancy compensator.
Thank you. I have one more from Udi Galili.
Honor Frost was considered the anchorologist, one of the pioneers of anchorology. And each time we discovered a new anchor, the first time we did in Israel, we sent her pictures and got her impressions. Now there were days that there was a big argument between Honor Frost, who claimed that Egyptians sailed at sea, and she gave references to the obelisk temples in Byblos, etc., and the story of Venamon, etc. And there was an English archaeologist, her name was Alessandra Nibi, who insisted that all these stories are nonsense. The Egyptians never left the delta. And she gave a lot of arguments that all the names along the coastal Levant are actually villages in the delta. And all the stories are actually happened in the delta, and the Egyptians never sailed the sea. This is according to Nibi. And then we recovered, together with Shelley, a stone anchor with Egyptian inscription and Egyptian sand, which was very, very obvious. And the first thing we did was sending it to Honor, and she was very happy. This was a proof that the Egyptians did sail at sea, and you cannot argue with this.
Yeah, well, that's lovely. Thank you, Udi. Elena, I think, and then Patrice. Elena Sweeney.
Thank you. My name is Lena Wild Swinney. I first met Honor in 1965, believe it or not. I was working with Peter Throckmorton near Taranto in Italy, and Honor came to visit. They were old friends, of course, and there was the team included Claude Dutuy as well. But I use this example to show you Honor's interest in all sorts of projects. This project has not been mentioned at all thus far, but it was a fairly small and insignificant one. Another member of that team was Anna Margarita McCann, believe it or not. And I feel that Peter Throckmorton deserves a lot of praise for the contributions that he made to underwater archaeology. And his friendship with Honor was a strong defense of two amateurs working together to achieve something very important. When I became a student at the Institute of Archaeology in the next year, and eventually my boyfriend, then to become my husband, also came to the Institute of Archaeology, Honor would frequently invite us to her house at Welbeck Street. There was always a fascinating group of people, but I mentioned this to show how she cared about young people, because I was a young person then, and how she wished to help us and promote us in the future and for our own futures. In later years, when my husband was director of the Cyprus American Archaeological Research Institute here in Nicosia, Honor was a frequent guest. And it was wonderful again to discuss whatever project she happened to be doing. Mainly it was on anchors. So this lady, as we have heard today, contributed so much to so many of us of different nationalities and different pursuits in life as we continued on, that I feel very privileged to have met her at that very early age when I was just toying with the idea of going into underwater archaeology, and to see a woman who was already there was a huge inspiration, because we were not necessarily, as women, encouraged to do these kind of things, and especially to go underwater. So thank you, and thank the Honor Frost Foundation.
Thank you, Lena. Okay, we'll take one more quick one from Patrice, and then I've got my second question, otherwise we're going to run out of time. Thank you. Thank you for mentioning the female.
The problem is I have so many souvenirs. Yes, it was in 1977. I was working on the excavation of La Madrague de Gien, and every year, Honor, coming back from Marsala, stopped in the excavation of Madrague de Gien, and we dive at the occasion and so on. And one year, this year of 1977, I got the idea to invite also Frédéric Dumas. And I don't know that they were no more in contact since 10 years. So when Honor comes on the excavation, I say, oh, Honor, I have a good surprise for you. I have invited Frédéric Dumas to come tomorrow to dive together on the wreck. And she said to me, I don't want to see this man. I was maybe more surprised than them. And I say, but I invite Frédéric Dumas, so it's over. You know, Honor, when she says that. And the day comes, and Frédéric Dumas arrived. But it was a little difficult, but we go to dive all together. And fortunately, the wreck was largely open, and we were working on the aft part around the bilge pump. It was very impressive. So it was a very nice diving. And after the diving, there was the habitual lunch made by Lulu, you know, famous. And with the wine and with a good meal, the ambience was going up, and all was working very well. And at the end of the day, Dumas is going back, and Honor said, thank you, Patrice, it was a wonderful day.
Oh, that's really nice.
So a very short memory. It was in London at the beginning of the 90s, and I was there, guest of honor in Welbeck Street. I had some historical documents to study at the Public Record Office, and I remember the weather was quite cold, but she wanted to go out for picnics because she was extremely fond of picnics. So we are leaving with the turbo for a picnic, and we ride in the countryside, and she prepared in a thermos Syrian coffee with cardamom, because that was always part of the picnics, and some knife and forks from 18th century, saying that was the picnic set. And we arrive in the countryside, and she looked at me with her blue eyes, and she says, all that green is obscene.
Oh. Okay, thank you all. Thank you, Patrice. Thank you, Sophie. I'm going to attempt question number 2. So, if you believe, and I think the if probably could be removed, Honor Frost has a legacy, what is it in your mind?
Okay, I'm going to make it short to make up for my double entry.
Absolutely good.
So, yeah, whenever I'm giving lecture for young students, I always get questions. When I'm speaking about maritime archaeology, I get random questions from young students about Honor Frost, her life. Now, I'm not sure if they know the connection between Honor and I, but I always get questions about her life, how she started, and things like that. So you tell me, is this legacy or not?
Yeah.
I think it is.
That's a nice answer.
Yeah, I think that her passion is a key word that follow her life. I mean, Honor Frost has been able to transform her passion for underwater archaeology into a profession that she conducted with perseverance. She conducted doing experiment, contributing enormously to a methodology, to the birth of a methodology for underwater archaeology that still today confers scientific legitimacy in the field. So the passion with she did all of the things she has done was the main keywords of her life.
We've talked about honor today, and I mentioned Borup Gerhard Kapitein, and I'm glad we've talked a bit about Peter Throckmorton. They were giants of the first generation. They never had academic posts for various different reasons. And, you know, will there be, in the second, third generation, will there be such people? But Honor was very good at encouraging young people, and she was very good. And with a natural handicap she wrote and wrote and wrote, and she encourages the message, I'm sure, and I know the foundation thinks that, encourage people, make sure that young people who are looking for jobs in this difficult world have a chance to present and publish. That's very important. It's very important that conference proceedings are published. And, you know, we know, and I'm glad to hear that the problem we had over the last TROPIS conference is the foundation can help with that. It's also for the oldies. Jean-Yves has been, I know about this one. People, when they retire, if they've had an academic post, have suddenly not got the infrastructure and support, or they may have. So it's helping people, even at various stages like that, to publish. If we don't publish, our work is destruction. But I think the first priority Honor always felt was to encourage people to write, but to ask difficult questions. I'm just imagine what Honor Frost would have thought about network theory. You know, did the ancient mariner know about network theory? He just wanted to know whether he could get fresh water and sell his goods at the next port. And that's where Honor was always good and practical. But the main thing is help young people to publish and help all of us to make sure we all are shamed into publishing.
Thank you, David. Actually, that also reminds me, I forgot to mention earlier, in terms of support of young people, the Foundation not only supports students in Southampton, but we also have students here from Egypt who are studying in Australia at Flinders University, and Aix-en-Provence are about to offer a new not a new program, but scholarships in their master's program for French-speaking students, because obviously a lot of the cohort from Lebanon and Syria, their first or second language anyway is not English but French. So just to add to that, so thank you for reminding me of that. If I pose the same question to others in the audience, the nature of her legacy, would anybody else like to respond to that? We've seen many different attributes of the huge array of things that she did through her life.
I would just want to mention a conference that took place in Bulgaria. There used to be, before TROPIS, a series of conferences to the young generations who are not aware of it, called Trachea Pontica. And it was organized by the Bulgarian and with Kristina Angelova. And there we met for maybe 6 or 7 times. Honor Frost and Gerhard Kapitein, they used to come together. And one day we were diving in the port of Sozopol, where there is a submerged Neolithic site. And this reminds me the story that you told with the last diving, the problem with the diving. So Honor Frost insisted to dive there. She was not young at that time. And we have to jump from the jetty to the site, which was about 2 meters high. And so I was a diving instructor, so I told Honor, please, when you jump, hold your mask. So, young man, don't tell me I know how to dive. Okay. So we jumped to the site and we started diving. And then I realized that Honor, the mask of Honor, is actually not on her eyes, but on her forehead. And she didn't notice it. She was diving, looking at the site, you know, and the mask was on the forehead. So very gently, I touch her shoulder and I say, Honor, take this. okay. And she removed it, she cleared it, and we never spoke about it, and this is the first time I'm telling
now
you.
you have. I'm not sure that goes down as part of her legacy, but Pat, can you, sorry, the lady with the microphone, there's Pat Baker behind, please, who's thank you.
Patrick Baker, Western Australia. For me, well, I was just into my 20s and I started to study photography, but I wanted to be a diver for 10 years. I still couldn't swim, but I read all the books on diving, and Under the Mediterranean came into the Mitcham Library that I was a member of, and I loved that book, and I still love that book. But it was the anecdotes that I liked, the human connection with what the subject was. And so often our technical papers are just that. They're trying to give the raw facts. Don't clutter it with emotion. And I think it's the emotion that's maintained it. It's certainly been constantly here with us today in the emotional connection with what we do and what we want to do. So I think that's a legacy, very much a legacy of Honor Frost. And it's still my favourite book on underwater archaeology.
Thank you, Pat. I think we yes, we do. We have a few more minutes.
Yeah, thank you. I have not worked with Honor Frost, but I have met her. I met her. I'm sure she wouldn't remember me if she was here, but I met her during the Iria shipwreck excavation when she came to visit, because it was either 92 or 93, I don't remember, when the Tropis took place in Nafplion. So a lot of people came to Nafplion, and then they came to visit the site. And Honor Frost came too, and I was 22 years old, 23, and I was trying to draw the anchor that we had just recovered. And it happens, my drawings, my measurements actually, it was not even a drawing yet, were lying next to the anchor when the director of the excavation gave her the tour, and she said, "Who is doing this?" He pointed to me, her. She said, "This is not correct." Yeah, I'm trying. And she tried to explain what I should measure, how I should document the anchor, but it was not the right moment. She was pressed for time, whatever. So she said a few things and she left. The following day, in the middle of the conference, she was so busy. She had prepared somehow in the middle of the night, I don't know, a piece of paper for Stella with instructions so that I could do the job properly. So I would add that her legacy was doing things, not just saying things, but have things done properly. And I think the foundation does it as well. She does things. She doesn't just promise things. That's my contribution.
That's very nice. Thank you, Stella. Well, maybe I think we're going to have to finish it. Okay, John, you can have one very brief. I'm not sure that those two things go together, but
I didn't know Honor, never met her, no photos with her. As a student, knew nothing about her. And I think her legacy will probably be something that she wouldn't like. And I think it's possibly going to be the role of women in maritime archaeology. There's a recognition of her role very early on as a pioneer. And I didn't know as a student that she had anything to do with Cape Caledonia. And I think her role in that and helping to discover the site and to work on the site, you look at the photos and you'll see Throckmorton and you'll see Bass. And there's a famous one where you've got Throckmorton and Bass. I think Throckmorton's he's smoking a pipe or something, or reading a book. And then in the background you've got Honor actually working. and I know she didn't like the sort of the gender side from what I can gather. And that, just be one of the boys and get the work done and be practical. But I think part of her legacy might actually be that, whether she likes it or not. And in some ways, I think that's a good thing. Anyway.
I think that's an excellent note to end on. Thank you, John. Thank you. And thank you very much to everybody. So thank you very much to everybody. I personally think it's been a great day and a brilliant way to start the conference. I hope you've enjoyed it. The buses are waiting, or they will be shortly. Please remember, tomorrow morning, The buses have been delayed a little bit because you were so efficient at getting here today. So you have a little lie-in, so the buses will leave at 8:30 from the places that you got them from today, whether it's near the Cleopatra or the Egyptian Street or Egypt Street. And we're going to a different venue. The poster presenters, we had said that you would have to leave slightly earlier, but would you please get to the bus promptly just before 8:30, because you'll be on the first bus that leaves and taken up to the other venue first of all. So I think that's all for now. Is that correct, Stella? Yes, that's correct. And I hope if you have any questions, come to myself or Stella or the lovely people at the back who've just done an amazing job today. So thank you all very much. Oh, and thank you, most importantly, to my panellists. I nearly forgot about you because of all these ones, but particularly thank you. Sorry.